Some of the most pleasant imagery can be found on a postage stamp. A country's beautiful landscapes, for example. What about its fauna and flora? The imagery on stamps can be used to celebrate achievements and people, or just simply used to put a smile on your face. But that is not always the case. They can be creepy, all kinds of creepy. From intentionally scary to strangely awkward and disturbing. They can trigger our deepest fears, or create entirely new ones. From uncomfortable messaging to death and skulls, a lot of these stamps will make you wonder, what were they thinking? So let's count down the top 10 creepiest stamps according to the Online Philatelic Community. This list was completely crowdsourced. Over 80 different stamps were nominated and then voted on by viewers like you. And it's a good list. It's an interesting list, one with different types of creepy on it, a word that can mean quite a lot, as we'll see in this video. We're going to start with the least creepiest stamp at number 10 and move our way down to the number 1 voted creepiest stamp. But I must say this, some of these stamps are kind of dark and uncomfortable to look at. I was quite shocked by some of the stamps that made it onto this list that I had never seen before. So just a warning. But if you're okay with that, then let's get this creepy stockbook countdown started with the first stamp at number 10. We are starting strong with Greenland, a popular stamp that was nominated a few times for the list. A polar bear with its fresh kill, which is a human. Issued in 1984, Greenland is known to have stamps with its national animal, polar bears. I've recently done a video on Greenland stamps, so check that out, but I never brought up this stamp, an image that at first glance could be a cute doggy with his squeaky toy. But it's not. It's totally not. Nope. This is apparently commemorating the 50th anniversary of the death of Carl Andreasson, who is not that guy, but rather the artist of the image. Carl was not only an artist, but also a writer and a teacher and a film actor who died in 1934. His artwork, well, put it this way, this is one of the cuter images that he produced. They are described as having a darkly comic aspect to them. This one is showing a hunter being killed by a polar bear, which must have been a bit uneasy for the Greenlandic public to put on their mail. But I'm sure it was quite satisfying for the polar bears in the 1980s, using it on all their outgoing letters. What a stamp, and I actually quite like it. Moving on to number 9. Organ donation issued by France in 2004. This has some unusual imagery. A smiling hand with smiling fingertips and 5 organs. The top of the stamp reads organ donation. This is a stamp raising awareness and promoting organ donation, which is great and is not an unusual topic on stamps. We've seen this from Costa Rica, Argentina, and several other countries. Turkey did something similar to our French stamp here with hands and organs, but I get that one, lending a helping hand with organ donation. This one? What is with the creepy face? It's unsettling, and I'm not sure if maybe it's meant to be. I don't know, maybe someone can provide more context about this particular imagery, but I'll tell you what, it worked. We are talking about this stamp here. It's raising awareness about organ donation in this video. But could I put this on an envelope? Not to anyone I like. It is a bit too creepy. Number 8. Reign of Death. A stamp issued by the Marshall Islands in 1999. A pile of skulls in a field. Not something you normally see on a postage stamp. So in 1997, the Marshall Islands began to issue stamps to reflect back on the events of the century, a sheet of 15 stamps for each decade. By 1999, they were issuing sheets for the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's where this stamp comes in. These stamps did not just capture the positive achievements and great moments of a decade, but really captured all aspects and events, good and bad. For this stamp, the Cambodian genocide is being highlighted, which lasted 4 years between 1975 to 1979. It was violent and saw the deaths of almost a quarter of Cambodia's population, which is something I wonder why I didn't learn about this in school. Well, this stamp educated me. But is it creepy? Skulls and death aren't things that you see on postage stamps usually, but you will see more skulls and death in this list. The imagery is colorful and bright, and quite well done actually. It is in line with the rest of the imagery of the stamp series, but it's the contrast of what looks to be a peaceful setting, a paddy field with farmers, mountains in the background, and then death right in the foreground, 11 or so skulls. It might be the stamp with the most skulls ever included on it. At first glance, it's actually an attractive stamp. But yes, it certainly can be considered a creepy stamp. Moving on. Number 7. Doctor Who's Weeping Angels. And yeah, I am totally with the online community on this one. This stamp was issued by the UK in 2013, making it the most recent of all the stamps to have been issued on this list. The Royal Mail has been issuing pop culture stamps for a while, stamps that relate to something popular at that moment in time, reaching out to different and new markets of collectors. Well, in this case, the UK was celebrating 50 years of Doctor Who, a science fiction television series that began in 1963, and the stamps featured each of the actors or doctors, as well as some other well-known imagery from the show. I don't watch and I haven't watched Doctor Who, so when I saw this stamp with no context as to what it is, it's horrifying. A demonic angel statue reaching towards me, like actually reaching out of the stamp. And then when I looked up this weeping angel, I was even more terrified by it. In the TV series, these statues are described as a race of predatory creatures, human-sized statues that move very quickly when they are not being observed. So if you are looking at them, they can't move. But when you blink, they do. I'm sure this is great for Doctor Who fans, but I wouldn't put this on a birthday card to Grandma. Unless she's a Doctor Who fan, but still. Number 6. This one. This is an angry baby, issued by Norway in 2000. And I am not surprised at all that this one made the list. So, from my understanding, Norway issued a set of 4 stamps to commemorate the 1000th anniversary of its capital city, Oslo, displaying imagery of its buildings and statues, one of which is this angry baby. There is a statue park in Oslo that contains more than 200 sculptures by an artist, Gustav Vigeland, and there are some unique statues in this park, one of which is this angry baby. One of the most famous of all the statues in the park. I will leave some links in the video description for you to do your own reading on this. But this angry baby makes for one creepy stamp. Firstly, we are looking up at the baby as if it is a giant baby having a temper tantrum. The color choice for the background looks like a fiery explosion, with the baby emerging from the flames in the background like a Godzilla baby destroying a city. But that would be cute. This is just even weirder. I had some Norwegians comment on this stamp when they saw it was nominated, saying, "This is a perfectly normal statue. How is this creepy?" This is creepy. A close-up screaming angry baby on a stamp? And I'm not the only one who thinks it's creepy, as it's made its way to number 6 on this list. Why is this on a stamp? Okay, next up. Number 5. This one is eerie creepy. Issued by Czechoslovakia in 1991, featuring Pinocchio, a classic children's story, but less of the cute Disney Pinocchio portrayal and more true to the possessed puppet that this story is really about. So Czechoslovakia used to issue stamps every other year that display children's book illustrations, specifically winners of the Biennial of Illustration Bratislava Awards. Each year, artists would be nominated and awarded for their children's book illustrations. That year, in 1991, the artist of this Pinocchio painting won. They also issued a stamp for the Frog Prince. I don't know that one. 2 years before that, The Donkey Rider and Animal Dreams, which I also don't know. I guess Pinocchio is the only one I'm familiar with. This eerie and cold image of the puppet sticking its nose through its clothing, looking quite lifeless with its hollow eyes, is not a puppet I'd feel comfortable with in my home, and probably not something I'd enjoy putting on an envelope, other than for maybe Halloween. Was this meant to be creepy? After all, this is supposed to be an illustration in a children's book. Well, apparently the artist, Stasys Eidrigevičius, is known for their portrayal of loneliness, alienation, sadness, and contemplation. And well, that checks all the boxes, making this Pinocchio stamp the number 5 creepiest stamp on our list. Number 4, the Faroe Islands Monsters, issued in 2012. Especially this one, which is a Nida Grisho monster. These, I think, are meant to be creepy, or even frightening. The Faroes Postal Service issued this set of stamps dedicated to the monsters from old Scandinavian folklore. And I couldn't find a whole lot of information about this, but from what I gathered online, these 4 monsters deal with fears and real issues between the known universe and the outer world. This particular one, the Nida Grisho, is a ghost child and appears where newborn children have been killed and buried without receiving a name. This is grim. This is a mischievous ghost that runs around on all fours and waits for people in the dark. You have to be especially careful when walking in or near cemeteries, and if it manages to run through your legs, you'll have less than a year to live. They particularly harass their mothers who killed them, and the folklore originated to deter families from killing weak or unwanted newborns. That got dark, but I warned you. The story is terrifying, but the imagery on its own is quite creepy. Notice that this little ghost or monster has childlike hands and legs. And whatever is going on with its red eyes and hedgehog-like body, yeah, it's creepy. I totally agree that deserves the number 4 spot. Number 3. This one is from Austria, issued in 1973, and there is a lot going on here. This stamp is a message. The text at the top reads, "Stop, drugs are suicide." And of course we have the imagery of a woman's face, of which half has her exposed skull. There's also a very trippy element to this artwork, the colors and background, her eyes. This was an anti-drug campaign. And yeah, I can see this being creepy. Her face is being dissolved. It's showing death and bringing up the sensitive topic of drug abuse. This stamp was nominated 7 times and was voted all the way up to number 3. But I must say that the artwork is quite impressive. I've seen this artwork being praised among non-stamp collectors, saying that this could be a cool classic horror movie poster or even a great album cover. This stamp grabs your attention. It stands out. Dare I say that it is an attractive stamp addressing a serious issue? Was it effective? I don't know. Does it deserve the number 3 spot on this list? The online community believes so. Do you? Oh, and this is not the only Austrian stamp on the list. Number 2. No violence against women. Austria made the list twice. This time the stamp was issued in 2007. This stamp fell short of first place by just 6 votes, and again, it is another important and sensitive topic. The text reads, "No violence against women," and the imagery is just, wow. It's terrifying, it's shocking, it's uncomfortable, and yeah, it's creepy. But in a horror movie kind of way. And it's not just the stitching on the mouth and eyes, but also the lighting of this gives the impression of being in a dark basement of an abuser or kidnapper, or even a lab or morgue. Is it a bit much for a stamp? Is a stamp the right place for such imagery? Stamps are used extensively to bring awareness to issues, as we saw with drug abuse and, in this case, violence or domestic violence against women. And believe it or not, this topic has been addressed on stamps several times, from Angola to Venezuela, but never with such graphic imagery. I think this stamp kind of works with that shock factor. It gets your attention, you have to look at it, it makes you think. But the horror movie vibes it gives off might take away from it a bit. And I get it, there is symbolism probably at work here. Violence isn't just physical, and this could be portraying those other types of abuse, visible and non-visible abuse. But yeah, I don't think I could have put this on an envelope. I'm not sure if it was a popular stamp to use, but it certainly made a point. As for creepy, yeah, this is a creepy stamp, making its way to number 2 on our list. Now, before we get to the number 1 creepy stamp, I have a few special mentions that did not make the list, but came very close. The Haunted Canada series, first issued in 2014. These stamps were meant to give you chills, portraying popular ghost stories throughout Canada, from ghost brides to ghost trains. This series was nominated numerous times and received quite a few votes. Turkey's car accident stamp. This 1977 stamp is reminding us that speed kills on the road, with a flipped over vehicle and, well, you know, blood. Not a pleasant stamp to use on your mail. This stamp just missed out on entering the list by a handful of votes. Kim Jong-un with Crying Children, issued in 2012. This is a different kind of creepy that we haven't seen on the list. North Korea's supreme leader walking proudly with children crying and clinging onto his arms. This is uncomfortable. The children are supposed to be crying in admiration for their leader. At least that's what they're expected to do. But are they crying in admiration or fear? You tell me. And finally, spiders, especially Australia's redback spider that was only issued in a presentation pack. It was thought the realistic size of this venomous spider on a stamp could alarm postal users who might mistake it for a real redback. Spiders are known to be creepy, and a realistic, life-size, dangerous spider on a stamp is terrifying to the unsuspecting person opening their mailbox. Yikes. Number 1. The number 1 stamp that I'm not surprised the community voted for is the Dead Cosmonaut stamp issued by Equatorial Guinea in 1972. There's just one question that comes up with this stamp. It's why. Why was this issued? It features 3 close-up dead faces of actual people from an actual event on a stamp. In 1971, the Soviet Union launched the world's first space station known as Salyut 1. And then the first successful 3-man crew of cosmonauts to then board the station was the Soyuz 11 crew. This crew that made it spent 23 days on the space station performing experiments. It was a massive achievement. But upon returning to Earth, they died of asphyxia prior to the capsule entering the Earth's atmosphere. So when the recovery team found the capsule and opened the hatch, they found all 3 cosmonauts dead. Now, the space race and space achievements have been well documented on postage stamps. These 3 cosmonauts were celebrated and memorialized through stamps from Romania to Vietnam and the Soviet Union, of course. They were all what you would expect, featuring the cosmonauts and their Soyuz rocket. But for some reason, Equatorial Guinea placed their dead faces on the stamp the moment the recovery crew discovered them. Now, I know paintings and artwork that include dead people have been on stamps. This isn't entirely unique. From Christ to Napoleon, and the many battle and revolutionary paintings include dead people. There have even been photographs of dead mutilated bodies on stamps issued by Bangladesh in 2017. Those shocking stamps were supposed to highlight war crimes during the Bangladesh Liberation War. I did not include them on the list, and I did not want to include them to be even voted on. This stamp, though, stands out and gives you chills. The artwork is creepy. The fact that this is portraying an actual moment is also creepy. The whole thing just gives off really creepy vibes. It was part of a set that honored cosmonauts and astronauts that lost their lives, including Apollo 1, Soyuz 1, and then this mission, Soyuz 11, showing the crew's journey, but then the 3 of them deceased in the capsule. I think their intentions were good, but this is well known in the stamp community as being such an unusual and creepy stamp that several collectors look to add it to their collection. Alright, that brings us to the end of this list, and it took us to some dark corners of philately. There are plenty of creepy stamps out there. Please let us know in the comments what you thought of this list, and would you add anything to it? And also let us know if you knew about all these stamps, and if you have any of them. I'd be curious to find out. A big thank you to the Online Philatelic Community for participating and providing all these creepy nominations and votes. I hope that you enjoyed the episode and didn't get too creeped out. As always, thank you for watching, and happy exploring.